This is Free Thinking Through the Fourth Turning. My name is Sasha Stone. How far is too far for DOGE? The American public is caught between the ongoing mass delusions of the left and the move fast and break things actions of DOGE. I've been watching in horror for the past 10 years as the left, aka the people with all of the institutional power, lose their minds. I know they don't see it that way. They think I'm the one who lost my mind. I was radicalized by the right, they think. I had a nervous breakdown, they think. But the truth is that I haven't changed. The only thing I did was refuse to go along with the madness. Oh, don't get me wrong, I went along with it at first. Even though history told me Trump couldn't lose in 2016, I was still awash in misery and fear, not just that year, but every year of his presidency, until the very last one, when I realized everything I once believed was an illusion. I was in a bubble, a feedback loop built by social media, tribalism, collectivism, and a wildly dishonest legacy press. My mistake was trusting that they were telling me the truth. I was shocked to find in 2020 that they were not. They were gaslighting us, doing the bidding of the Democratic Party just as they're doing now. As an example of the level of hysteria we're dealing with here, a review posted in Variety details how the Brazilian film, I'm Still Here, is a warning for the United States. The headline, "It Could Happen Here." I'm Still Here is about Rubens Paiva, who according to Wikipedia was a, quote, Brazilian civil engineer and politician who as a congressman at the Brazilian Chamber of Deputies opposed the implementation of the military dictatorship in Brazil in 1964. Due to his involvement with activities deemed subversive by the dictatorial regime, he was arrested by the military forces and subsequently tortured and murdered. His remains were never found, end quote. That is a perfect description of how the left sees the Trump administration. Even though they lost in a free and fair election to Trump, an election they could have won if they hadn't installed Joe Biden in 2020, then turned on him, pushed him out of power, and installed Kamala Harris, forbidding any kind of democratic process to find a stronger leader. Their loss is entirely their own fault. They had everything, money, media, celebrities, and power, and they still lost. Much of the reason why they lost is their disconnect from reality. They could not speak to the people, much less address their needs. That disconnect from reality is imagination gone wrong. It's too bad they can't funnel it into telling better stories, making better movies, writing better books. But all of those have been captured by dogma and can only tell the same story over and over again. And that's what they're doing here. It must be true that Trump was an unstoppable, extraordinarily evil presence they could not eradicate by normal means, and they are helpless against his power. I hoped that with the second Trump win, the mass delusion would be punctured, but I was wrong. It's much worse now than it's ever been. The Woketopians locked away in their doomsday bunker read to me like David Koresh once the FBI announced they were outside. It's hard for me to watch people this afraid. To them, the mass deportations are military police in Hitler's army. To them, purging schools of indoctrination is book banning. To them, scaling down government is fascism. I don't know how to help them see reality, or how to help them at all. What is even more ironic in attempting to compare Trump to Brazil in the 1960s or any fascist dictator is that only one side has attempted to jail its political opponent. Only one side spied on and framed their political opponent. Only one side put protesters in solitary and called them terrorists. Only one side will destroy your entire career over how you voted or a joke on X. Only one side demands conformity and that you obey their newspeak or else. Only one side censored free speech via social media, violating the First Amendment, and they were just getting started. Here's a pro tip. How you know you're not under the rule of a fascist dictator is that you can call them a fascist dictator in public and nothing bad will happen to you. They had 4 years to prove to America they were the better side, but they failed. Rather than confront that reality, They found a way to pivot away from their faults. And of course, they're all coming back to X, even Stephen King. For podcast listeners, from November 14th, Stephen King, I'm leaving Twitter. Tried to stay, but the atmosphere has just become too toxic. Follow me on Threads if you like. From Stephen King, Governor Janet Mills to Trump, see you in court. Makes me proud to be a Maine man. Thank you, Governor, for standing up to the bully, with 93,000 likes. Stephen King, just wanted to say that Trump is a traitorous, Putin-loving dipshit. Goes double for Elon, 306,000 likes. And Stephen King, February 20th, I'm back. Did you miss me? In case you missed it, that's Stephen King standing up for a governor who has vowed to defy Trump's executive order to keep biological men out of women's sports. When I say there is no saving the left, I mean there is no saving the left. There is only saving America from them. Musk has control of X. He could ban Stephen King and every single person who calls him a fascist and a Nazi, and much worse. He doesn't. Not only that, but he allows the worst tweets about him to live on the app, some of them with over 100,000 likes, as the so-called resistance cosplays that they're under the thumb of a fascist dictator. It's their mass delusions that have always been a threat, not just to this country, but to themselves. At this rate, they'll be out of power for a generation. Unless, of course, MAGA moves too fast and breaks too many things. Smart politics, dumb politics. DOGE is, I think, serving the American people well on one hand. Our government was too big, there was too much fat on the bone, too much fraud, and too many unaccounted for billions. We're headed for bankruptcy and our inflation is out of control, so why not go in with a chainsaw and mow it all down like Javier Milei did in Argentina? Musk is the richest man in the world. He will suffer no consequences for mistakes made. Trump and MAGA, however, will. Of course, we know this is a rigged game. They'll never give Trump or Musk any credit for anything they do. ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post are all at war with the Trump administration, going on 10 years by now. They'll attack until his poll numbers drop, and then they'll feel emboldened to go in for the kill. The latest mass hysteria episode comes after Musk announced he would send emails to workers, ordering them to prove their work or be fired, as he did at Twitter when he bought it. Here is the email, which seems harmless enough. Please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullet points of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Yet this is how it was interpreted. From Senator Tina Smith. This is the ultimate dick boss move from Musk, except he isn't even the boss, he's just a dick. And then she says, I bet a lot of people have had an experience like this with a bad boss. There's an email in your inbox on Saturday night saying, prove to me your worthiness on Monday or else. I'm on the side of workers, not the billionaire asshole bosses. Well, how about being on the side of the taxpayers who pay your salary, madam? Trump and DOGE are trying to save all of us money. If they aren't earning their pay, why should all of us foot the bill? On the other hand, Musk is not built like an ordinary human being. He has Asperger's, for one thing, which can be best defined as people who can't read human emotions or signals very well. Often things have to be explained to them. It's like they're colorblind, but it's toward empathy and reading others. But he should know that taking things away from people will make people lose trust in DOGE and flip to the Democrats. If you roll back government so that it doesn't impact the rest of us, they'll support you. Here is Matt Taibbi and Walter Kern.
In this populist moment, what the Republicans or the MAGA people really have is simply the massed disgust of the American middle and lower middle classes. And pitting that against Jon Stewart and Jen Psaki and, all these other, and Stacey Abrams, I know organically which side I'm on. And I know that one has that underdog American characteristic and the other doesn't. So if I'm a betting man, I know who's going to win. I just don't know how much damage is going to be done along the way.
Well, one thing that I think before we even get to the question of like the right and the wrong of this, will this work out politically, and who will benefit? For me, I think that the test with Trump, because these early decisions to go in, swinging this axe with absolute ferocity at certain agencies, I think people were shocked by it. They've never seen either Republicans or Democrats actually act in a grand way, during peacetime, right? So, Barack Obama was elected on this grand promise of change, and then he sort of ostentatiously non-changed throughout his entire presidency. Trump comes in, he starts whacking away. There's this just blood spurting everywhere, and we can see all the detritus that's in the budget, and it's like horrifying, right? People are sifting through it. I think it will be a net plus for him politically, so long as he follows through with all of the agencies, right? And so that's why there was some big news this week.
But if, say, they make cuts in areas that matter to people like me, like the national parks, that will win the Democrats many voters. Who doesn't love our national parks? For podcast listeners, a tweet by Dr. Lucky Tran. It says, brilliant protest. Yosemite National Park workers hung an upside-down American flag, traditionally a symbol of distress or a national threat, thousands of feet off the ground on the side of El Capitan. And this tweet from Annie for Truth. MAGA will soon find out they will be adversely affected by Trump's actions. Too bad, they were warned, and that's what you voted for. Hashtag Project 2025. And a tweet by Marilyn O'Brien. My daughter is losing her job thanks to DOGE. I voted for President Trump 3 times. My daughter is a hard-working, excellent worker for the Manistee National Forest. She doesn't work for DEI. She runs the office. I'm pissed. It's not right. A tweet like Marilyn's could be faked. It could easily be some operative in the unreality machine attempting to manipulate public opinion. But it will work because of how all of us feel about Yosemite and Yellowstone. We like our park rangers. We don't want to see them fired. We don't want machines that replace the labor force. This is a war MAGA will lose if they continue down this particular path. Veterans. The media distortions around cuts to the Defense Department have been shapeshifted into hurting military veterans. They're experts at gaslighting, lest we forget how they shifted from the police are racist to the police are valued after January 6th. For podcast listeners, a tweet by Adam Parkomenko. If you're cheering for a South African sociopath to F over U.S. military veterans, then you should probably stop with that America First bullshit. This would be a good time for military personnel like Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard to go on a PR tour to reassure the public that this is not happening. In MAGA, they know their side values and protects the military, but the left will lie about them in every way they can, because they're David Koresh with the FBI outside, and they'll do anything. Healthcare. There is fraud in Medicaid and Medicare, which should be rooted out, just as long as they don't take healthcare away from people. If they do that, the people will vote the Democrats back in power. This isn't a debate about the merits of Obamacare or lack thereof, but rather a warning. This is a bright red line that if they cross it, they will lose big in 2026 and in 2028. People with disabilities, senior citizens, and the working class need reliable health care they can afford and access to it. Why take that away from people? There is no upside. Not that DOGE was planning on that, but if they were, take note. Social Security is another losing issue, but that one is too obvious even to bother writing about. For his part, Musk has said he's doing everything he can to save Social Security because, on our current path, it can't last. Here he was at CPAC.
On that same question, they're also talking about you guys are going to end Social Security, you're going to end Medicare, you're going to end these things. I don't imagine that conversation has been had with the president, and that's the plan.
No, in fact, the actions that we're taking with the support of the president and the support of the agencies is what will save Medicare, what will save Social Security.
Yeah.
And because if the country goes insolvent, if all the money is just spent on paying interest on debt, there's no money left for anything.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm doing this, is because I was looking at the big picture here, and it's like, man, our debt's getting out of control. The interest payments, the interest on the national debt now exceeds the entire Defense Department budget.
$1 trillion a year in
Yes.
interest. Just to carry the money that we owe is $1 trillion a year.
Yes.
That is unbelievable.
And rising rapidly. A country is no different from a person. Country overspends, country goes bankrupt. Same as a person who overspends goes bankrupt. So it's not like optional to solve these things. It's essential. So
We're going to go bankrupt.
yes,
We are.
As I watched the headlines turn on DOGE, I felt hopeless. But then I watched Megyn Kelly's speech at CPAC, which reminded me of what this fight has really been about, the truth. Being able to say it without fear, being able to live it without shame, and building a better, freer country without the madness we've all been living through for the past 10 years.
But it's bringing up like room to explore the past 10 years that we've all been through, and how, Trump put a period at the end of it, we hope, or at least the beginnings of the end, by winning. So the bully thing. What was one of the biggest stories this past year? Daniel Penny, right? You guys know who that is. Daniel Penny stood up for others on the New York City subway when there was a crazed man who was out of his mind on drugs threatening to kill people, and got him in a chokehold, and the man ultimately later passed, and he got charged by that insane crank, Alvin Bragg, and had to defend himself against criminal charges. Yes, boo, he deserves it. So Daniel Penny got bullied by Alvin Bragg and the media, which did not stand up for him either. There was Nick Sandmann, remember him? I love how you guys know these names, you're my people. Nick Sandmann goes out there in front of the Supreme Court to stand up for life, and CNN portrays him as this villain, as this smirking, crappy, arrogant villain. Look at him, and he's sneering at a Native American who's just there minding his own business. Totally the opposite. Totally the opposite. Nick Sandmann was standing there respectfully while he was being antagonized by the Native American who was dancing aggressively in his face and getting up on him and mocking him. That's why CNN had to pay him in a defamation case. That was settled. Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse tried to do what the Biden administration would not, and go to Wisconsin and actually protect the neighboring town. It did not go well. He wound up shooting 3 guys. He was acquitted on all charges ultimately. But before we knew much at all about that case, Joe Biden got out there as he was running for president. This happened prior to Biden taking over. As he was running for president, and called Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. There was zero evidence of this. The kid was 18 years old. He's got the possible next, at that point possible, ultimately yes, president of the United States telling everyone he's a white supremacist, something for which he never apologized, Joe Biden. There was no evidence of that, none. So the left likes to bully people who are weak. He's a kid. Now he's on trial for triple homicide in one case, and you think it's a great time to pile on him publicly as the possible next president? There's something wrong with that. Something's off about a guy in a party that does it and supports it. And so the bully nature of the left has been on full display, as has its controlling nature. And the thing about the AP is they love word changes, name changes. They live for this crap. Just as soon as they were told they have to call girls who transition to boys, boys, they did it. Boys who transition to girls, they did it. They went with the pronouns, the whole thing. You can't even read an AP story about some trans thing without leaving utterly confused. Now there's no more somebody born male or somebody born female. It's assigned male at birth, assigned female at birth, like it was a sin committed by the doctor, and it still is very ambiguous. They love that name change. They did it right away. Illegal immigrants, we don't have those anymore if you read the AP. They got rid of that term. It's too offensive. Now you have to say undocumented immigrant. What does that mean? An illegal immigrant makes sense to everybody. Now, undocumented, that's what... They got rid of the term crisis at the southern border when Joe Biden was president. Could no longer say crisis. As soon as the numbers hit 100,000 a month, the word crisis kept appearing. Not in the AP, we don't do that. That's not okay. Even though Jay Johnson, Obama's Homeland Security Secretary, said it's a crisis if you have 30,000 in a month. This time under Biden, it was 100,000. AP gets rid of the word crisis and didn't bring it back even when we had 300,000 crossing a month. Forgot that word. They won't say terrorist when they're talking about Islamic terrorists. All of these word changes they're totally in favor of, but Gulf of America is a bridge too far. So look, I'll leave you with this. Blake Lively had a point on one thing. Her time as the Hollywood it girl. The days of the left bullying and controlling us without much pushback. The days of the media pretending to be objective and independent and demanding to be left be owned. It really does end with us. And not a moment too soon.
Even if DOGE is about making our government leaner and more efficient, the MAGA movement should also be about building, about rising, about optimism. Don't forget that FDR was in power for 4 terms, only after the Hoover administration left too many American citizens in poverty with no safety net. If you pull too far in one direction, you can expect an equal and opposite reaction in the other. DOGE should try to remember that people are just people. At our best, we maintain our empathy. At our worst, we lose it. Thank you for listening to my podcast, sashastone.substack.com. And remember, to thine own self be true.
I pictured a rainbow. You held it in your hands. I had flashes, but you